Keiran, what's it like now, just knowing that you are back at home and you have this home life?
It's great. The stability is pretty awesome, actually. Knowing full well that I'm not going to be asked to deploy at the last minute, or get some sort of crazy duty. Now I work a regular 9 to 5. I still work with the MOD in Bristol, but it is a steady job, weekends off. Hence the reason why I've managed to actually get myself my first ever season ticket. Supporting the club for 40 odd years, and I've never had a season ticket. I've had to just try and work my way around and weasel my way into a game occasionally. It's great. I'm loving the stability. I really am. Home life, it's magic.
Is it strange when you find out and when you know that your time at the RAF is over?
Kind of doesn't feel like it is. I'm very lucky. I finished my time at Bryce Norton. A lot of my friends who are still in are still around the corner. So I get to see them quite often. It's really strange. I'm out of the Air Force, but equally my mates are still my mates, and I get filled in with all sorts of detail about what's happening, and we just talk. That's what people do, and it's okay. It's all right.
And I suppose in days like Remembrance Sunday and weeks and around that time as well, those are probably the moments as well where you definitely don't feel like you're not part of it anymore, because it is a coming together of so many people.
Yeah, definitely. So I belong to an association. There's lots of like regimental associations for the army, squadron associations for various units and services and such like. I belong to one, the UK MAMS Association, United Kingdom Mobile Air Movement Squadron, and that comes from when I was based in Wiltshire, at RAF Lynham, and every year we get about 100 tickets at the moment to march past the cenotaph, and I'm very proud to say that I've been very lucky for the third year running that I've managed to grab a ticket. So I'll be marching past on Remembrance Sunday in front of a king with my mates.
Life out of the RAF is that you've got some home comforts like this. You can just make cups of tea when you want.
To be fair, I don't think you'll find too many squaddies or Air Force or Navy guys who are too far away from a brew.
Yeah.
All right, generally do all right. But yes, once you go on deck, teas and brews generally are the thing. So any army blokes watching this will basically laugh at an RAF bloke talking about austere areas, all right? Because the army generally think we all live in hotels. A lot of the time we do. I'm not gonna lie. I've been on many a detachment where room service hasn't been up to standard. But equally, the more austere areas such as Afghanistan, Iraq, and basically the forwards areas, it can be a lot different. You're living on a camp cot, possibly in a tent if you're lucky for some of the certainly some of the army lads. But in a tent with a load of guys, and showers are as and when, solar showers outside and all that sort of stuff. It's it's all right. It brings you all together though. It's strange.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels. You probably think it's uncomfortable, but then it becomes the norm, and you just get on with it. It is what it is. You adapt. You have to adapt.
I know the next answer for you is going to be family, but what home comforts do you miss when you are away for such a length of time?
So you've probably seen it by the size of me that I love crisps, right? And cheese and onion crisps used to get sent through the post all the time. Which was magic, And any time I got a gift box, it would be generally full of a 6-bag of crisps and some other stuff. But being away, you absolutely become dependent on news, and it could be news from home, news from the leagues. You start becoming fixated on where your team are, and you're working out all sorts of things and situations that could make you just get that one step further.
So would you have radio from back home here, but most of the time it would be like Premier League and even Championships?
Generally, so you'd have BFBS, which would, let's face it, they generally fixate on the Premier League and the Championship. They're the most supported clubs, you'd argue. when you're in a conference, you ain't getting a look in. You know.
We'll get into some more stuff about the football in a little bit, but just touching on the family side of things as well, it's probably one part that maybe people don't pay as much attention to, that when you're going on these tours, you're having to spend so much time away from family, as you mentioned there. How difficult is that? And then now that you've got this opportunity to have a home life, how special is it now?
I think the saying goodbye bit is difficult, but if you ask most guys who've done it, you kind of, as soon as you've shut the door, you're already gearing yourself up. Days before, you're kind of getting into that zone where you're going out to work, and that's it, you know, and you kind of switch that side off, other than you know, contacting them on a weekly basis or whatever. But yeah, you're out there to do a job. So and your family are the people you end up working with, and that just works like that. You know, I'm not going to get all mushy in that. You know, they're your bestest brothers and sisters or stuff like that. But it can get to that point. You know, there's a few areas where people get very close and depend on each other.
Do you want to do pictures? If you
I can show a few. Yeah, I can show a few pictures. Bear with me one moment.
Yeah.
I'll grab my laptop and.
Perfect.
I just put a load together the other day. There's no sort of particular order.
Yeah.
So right. There's no particular order, but that's me, my youngest daughter, and my eldest daughter, just before Remembrance Parade in about 2011, I think that was. Jennifer's 20, and Corin's 18. Jenny's at uni in Belfast, at Queen's, and Corin's about to join the RAF.
Amazing.
Yeah. So.
Is that quite proud?
Yeah. Well, Jenny's just awesome. She's such she's just excellent academically. She really is. And Corin, the bonus of my job in the Air Force was I travelled a lot. You know, I went to some pretty interesting places, and she wants to get a piece of that. So why not? I'm happy as Larry for her to do it. This is part of the job that I used to do. Okay, so you've seen the Chinook helicopter flying around and all that. So for about 5 years of my career, I was what's termed as a hooker, right?
Don't know you played rugby.
Yeah. Strangely enough, I was one on there as well. But yeah, so what our job, and you'll see in a minute, actually, hopefully I'll show you in there. This is just a 20-foot container being lifted to going into a certain location. My normal job in the Air Force was more of a strategic logistics guy, so getting stuff from UK into a theatre of operations maybe. This part of my time was more tactical, they call it, right, which is like the in-theatre operation side of it, so getting stuff from airheads or the battlefield or whatever, back to where it needs to be. That is the team that I was leading in Iraq in the second Gulf War in 2003. And this is a team of hookers, as I mentioned before, and our job was to get the stores to the front line and the troops in the helicopters and all that sort of stuff. The right ragtag bunch of dudes, really, really nice team, lads actually, and ladies, of course.
What comes to mind when you see that?
Just how much of a decent bunch of guys they were. You know, you got a young South African lad there, an infantry soldier there, a couple of army lads. We were just a mix of all sorts. It wasn't just an Air Force thing. This is a joint unit, they call it, the Joint Helicopter Support Unit. That's what we're part of. It's now called the Joint Helicopter Support Squadron, based at RF Benson, just near Wallingford. And we go there sort of every 5 years and have a bit of a booze up. But yeah, these guys were all pretty awesome and very fresh-faced. We're all fresh-faced. We're all young at the time. Just going in there, not really knowing what to expect, and just cracking on with it, which is exactly what every person does, regardless of what cap badge or service they are.
So were you 30? Yeah.
There, 2003, yeah, 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think when you see a 31?
31. Still cracking the haircut. Yeah. This was May. So that's my daughter Corin. That's my nephew who lives in Whitney, and bumped into him after the game. We're all very happy and had a great time there, actually. That is an awesome picture. I love that picture. You know, how often do you see Oxford United written on Wembley? I never made it to, I told you how gutted I was, as everyone was when we got relegated to the non-league. Well, 4 years later, we did get promoted. I was in Germany at the time, and my boss wouldn't let me go back to the UK, right, to watch it. You'll see some pictures in a minute of how I kind of got over it. But honestly, I was not happy. I think it's probably just the nicest way of putting it. That's me when I first joined up, just there, age 17.
Gosh.
You can't really see me, unfortunately. It doesn't go in any further.
What does that bring back?
Oh, I thought it was fun. My dad was quite... so my mum and dad split up, and my dad looked after us when I grew up. So my mum was from Minster Lovell, and she was living in Bahrain at the time. But my dad had custody of us, so we lived in Carterton. And he was ex-RAF, and he had certain rules, right? 6 o'clock, dinner's on the table, blah, blah. If you're not there, you don't eat, better luck next time, right? And all that. So you turn up at 6:05, chance your luck. And he's dishing out your food to everyone else, and it's like, oh crap, he means it, right? Following night, 6 o'clock, bang on, you're all there, no problem. No, he's not joking. And it carried on. That's how we were kind of brought up. It was sort of a little, I say not hard knocks, little sort of knocks occasionally, just to make sure that you realise that there's certain ways of doing things, and be respectful, etc., etc. Anyway, so when I joined up, all this military stuff I'd kind of had. So it kind of felt quite easy. There's a lad there, guy called Smurf, Mark Firth. He's from Sheffield, a place called Bayton. First guy I met in the Air Force, and he had no idea. He was a scooter boy, right, who'd been just living. He was 21, I was 17. He was just living it up and not had any clue, So I helped him out, and he did really well, actually. He became a warrant officer in the end. But it's good, and he's one of my oldest friends in the Air Force. This is the stuff, the welcome homes. Look at that, that's awesome. It's absolutely magic. I can't explain the relief when you come out of a theatre into home, and it's just, the weight's off for a time, until the missus ends up giving you all the jobs that you're supposed to have done over the last 6 months, and then kind of felt like I've talked quite a lot.
No, that's perfect. Your life in 32 years then, and more?
Well, there's a few bits. There's no Belize, there's no Ascension Island there. I've been to the States more times than I could shake a stick at, to be honest. More times than I can count. And there's loads of stuff that I was based at Northolt for a year, and that was basically seeing the Queen and other distinguished sort of dignitaries going in and out of the country, and making sure that their passage through the airports and that were okay. It was great, So this is my little packet that I don't get out very often. So this is my first medal, the Northern Ireland General Service Medal for Northern Ireland, and then following on from that, from another tour, I got a bar for Air Ops Iraq, looking after the southern no-fly zone out in Saudi Arabia. Following on from there, that is the Gulf War II medal, if you like, Optelic it's called, with bar, which denotes that you were there right at the start. Although I'd argue that the guys who were there a little bit later probably had a harder time. But depends who you are, who says that. But Basra certainly got absolutely smashed. That is the Afghanistan Operation Service Medal. The following three are the Queen's Jubilees, so golden, diamond and platinum. That one's the accumulated service medal, and that's basically for the time served on operations. It comes after a certain time, you'll get that. And then finally, it's the long service good conduct medal, and there's a bar on that. So you get the long service good conduct for 15 years of not being caught, and for another 10 years, you'll get a bar on it, and then the bars keep adding up, depending on how long you do. And that's it. And this one here is my father's General Service Medal, for his time in Borneo, which my daughter Keiran usually wears on Remembrance days.
As you were mentioning, just the importance of football clubs to everybody, but then particularly for yourself and for others.
I think when you're away, you always want that link to home. And for most guys, football's a good way of doing it. You know, their clubs are their homes. You know, it takes them back to their childhoods. It whisks them away straight away to maybe standing on the terrace having the best of times, or possibly the worst of times, or depends how you look at it. And when you support a smaller club and you don't hear that club's name very often, when it comes up on the news or the radio or whatever, suddenly you're buzzing. You know. Like I mentioned, in Afghan in 2006, we were a conference club, just starting a conference campaign. My thoughts were, yeah, we're going to get out of this, no problem. Didn't quite work out as planned. But with conference comes less news coverage. So when you did hear it, it was extra special. You know, even just hearing the name of your club, when you're getting the results, it just takes you back. How many people are there? What's going on? You know, I can imagine leaving the club now and getting back on wherever, going for a pint, or, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's amazing how much it helps you. It's a great morale boost. Not having the footy scores is almost a killer for a lot of people. You know, you're itching to find out any news because it's your community, your club. Bit dark in here, isn't it?
It's alright, actually.
Keiran, we've had the chance to go through seeing your medals, your photographs. Take us back though to 17-year-old you and the decision to join the RAF. What was it about it that made you want to join?
So I grew up around the RAF. I grew up in Carterton from the age of about 3 or 4, something like that. And everything, no matter which way you looked, it was military anyway, right? As I grew up, most of my mates were kids of military people. You know, so they'd move away or come back or whatever. You know, you kind of lost touch and made new friends pretty quickly. That was kind of sort of tough, but that's kind of the way it was. Growing up in Carterton, brilliant. I had a great time, a proper country bumpkin. Didn't really see Oxford itself, the city, or anything like that until early teens, kicking around the fields and just enjoying life, you know, as any young lad would. Growing up, why did I decide to join the RAF? I got myself a Saturday job around about, I guess, 13 years old, something like 14, and it was working in a factory, and it was mind-numbingly, it was a killer basically for any brain cells. I left school with no qualifications, and I didn't really have any oomph to do anything, and then realised maybe my two brothers were in the military, one in the army, one in the air force, and I thought maybe I should do that. You know, let's get out of this dead end kind of world that I've set myself up in, and yeah, so I did. I joined up and never looked back. Joined up at 17, left at 49.
Still to this day, Oxford United is a massive part of your life, and I imagine that was the case before joining the RAF as well. Just talk us through supporting the club at those early stages of your life and any memories that you've got.
So I didn't really start supporting Oxford until my early teens, when I started visiting Oxford as a city itself. My dad was an Irishman who grew up in Dagenham from about the age of 8 or so, supporting West Ham. So he naturally wanted all his kids to support West Ham. But in my early teen years, getting into going to watch Oxford with my mates at school, it was so much more accessible, and it just became the thing. And that I told my dad, no, not West Ham, I'm Oxford.
So tell us about then, you joined the RAF at 17. Tell us about your first deployment, where you went and what you can remember about the feelings of emotions of going away for your first time.
I was really fortunate. As a 19-year-old, I got sent to a place called Belize, in Central America. It's a jungle on one part, and also an idyllic key setup on another. It's wonderful, second largest barrier reef in the world. Loads of opportunities to do all sorts of water sports and various other things, as well as just getting on with your job. What was my thoughts about going there? I spoke to my dad who'd been to Borneo, and he said, "Look, son, this is probably the closest you'll ever get to what I've done." And he said, "Just go and give it everything you can." And I did 6 months. 6 months in a 10-man room, being eaten to death by mosquitoes, and I certainly did, thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a brilliant time. 19 years old, I couldn't have thought of anything better to have been doing.
Over 32 years, would have witnessed so much. So there's so much involvement in the RAF as well, in terms of where you're deployed and the reasons why you're deployed to certain places as well.
Yeah.
So many amazing moments, but I can only imagine there must be some difficult moments along the way as well.
Yeah, I think possibly the most difficult. Obviously, there's when people lose their lives and such like. I'm fortunate enough not to have been involved. None of my mates, while serving, have done that. Certainly in probably, what am I trying to say? In Afghan and that, those guys who did lose their lives, I didn't really know them, although they're part of the family. And you do feel massively for them, you know. So that's the biggest thing, I think, regardless of anything else. You know, when someone loses their life, it's huge. It's just the worst thing. Full stop. Other than that, well, everything's kind of a little bit sweeter, I guess, you know. But in the same vein, you're missing your children's birthdays, your wife's anniversary, you know, that sort of stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's not woe is me or anything like that. That's just how it is, and we all come to accept it. It happens, and when you get back, you'll celebrate those times then. So, yeah, but I've been involved with the real harrowing stuff. I've not been involved with that, thank goodness.
This is a time of the year in November, Remembrance Sunday coming up. You're going to be there on Saturday to lay a wreath, and it's an opportunity to remember those that have fallen, people that you personally may have seen and worked alongside, and have real stories with as well. Just how important is it that we take this time?
I think it's incredibly important. Firstly, I am so proud to represent my football club in this, but equally, it's for everyone who has gone before us. This is a big deal for veterans and for servicemen. Those who paved the way for us and have given their lives, you know, we can't forget that, not at all. It's the biggest thing for us.
And just finally, for everyone that's going to be there on a Saturday, for everyone that's then going to be watching what we put out here and beyond that into Remembrance Sunday, what's one thing that you hope people can take away from this time?
I think I hope they take away just the sense of meaning, I guess, meaning. All right, it means a lot. You know, some of those guys and ladies are unable to enjoy their football on a Saturday anymore. Stuff like that. You know, and it means a hell of a lot. You know, we should really embrace every day. I think personally. You know, it's a great honour for me, but for those people watching, everyone does things their own way. Of course they do. You know, no one's going to ask them or tell them to do stuff. But just a moment's thought for the sacrifice, I think, it doesn't take a lot.
A lot of emotions.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of emotion. The guy I'm going with is ex-army, you know, and he'll be pretty emotional. But we'll try and keep it together, and if not, we'll look after each other. I guess.
3 points to celebrate.
Most importantly, is 3 points for me on Saturday. No, it's not. Of course, it's not the most important thing. It is important. Please, Des.
We'll pass that over.
Yeah. But it's. I think we're playing well, actually.
Yeah.
And who am I though? Just a dude that turns up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.